Chapter 1. Another boy's mother. Arthur's mother was English. Her name was Mrs. Milligan. She was a widow, and Arthur was her only son. At least, it was supposed that he was her only son living, for she had lost an elder child under mysterious conditions. When the child was 6 months old, it had been kidnapped, and they had never been able to find any trace of him. It is true that, at the time he was taken, Mrs. Milligan had not been able to make the necessary searches. Her husband was dying, and she herself was dangerously ill and knew nothing of what was going on around her. When she regained consciousness, her husband was dead, and her baby had disappeared. Her brother-in-law, Mr. James Milligan, had searched everywhere for the child. There being no heir, he expected to inherit his brother's property. Yet, after all, James Milligan inherited nothing from his brother. For 7 months after the death of her husband, Mrs. Milligan's second son, Arthur, was born. But the doctors said that this frail, delicate child could not live. He might die at any moment. In the event of his death, James Milligan would succeed to the fortune. He waited and hoped, but the doctor's predictions were not fulfilled. Arthur lived. It was his mother's care that saved him. When he had to be strapped to a board, she could not bear the thought of her son being closed up in a house, so she had a beautiful barge built for him, and was now traveling through France on the various canals. Naturally, it was not the first day that I learned all this about the English lady and her son. I learned these details little by little while I was with her. I was given a tiny cabin on the boat. What a wonderful little room it appeared to me. Everything was spotless. The only article of furniture that the cabin contained was a bureau. But what a bureau! Bed, mattress, pillows, and covers combined. And attached to the bed were drawers containing brushes, combs, etc. There was no table or chairs, at least not in their usual shape, but against the wall was a plank, which when pulled down was found to be a little square table and chair. How pleased I was to get into that little bed. It was the first time in my life that I had felt soft sheets against my face. Mother Barberins were very hard, and they used to rub my cheeks, and Vitalis and I had more often slept without sheets, and those at the cheap lodging houses at which we stayed were just as rough as Mother Barberins. I woke early, for I wanted to know how my animals had passed the night. I found them all at the place where I had installed them the night before, and sleeping as though the beautiful barge had been their home for several months. The dogs jumped up as I approached, but Pretty Heart, although he had one eye half open, did not move. Instead, he commenced to snore like a trombone. I guessed at once what was the matter. Pretty Heart was very sensitive. He got angry very quickly, and sulked for a long time. In the present circumstances, he was annoyed because I had not taken him into my cabin, and he showed his displeasure by pretending to be asleep. I could not explain to him why I had been forced to leave him on deck, and as I felt that I had, at least in appearances, done him an injury, I took him in my arms and cuddled him to show him that I was sorry. At first he continued to sulk, but soon, with his changeable temper, he thought of something else, and by his signs made me understand that if I would take him for a walk on land, he would perhaps forgive me. The man who was cleaning the deck was willing to throw the plank across for us, and I went off into the fields with my troop. The time passed, playing with the dogs and chasing Pretty Heart. When we returned, the horses were harnessed, and the barge in readiness to start. As soon as we were all on the boat, the horses began to trot along the towing path. We glided over the water without feeling a movement, and the only sound to be heard was the song of the birds, the swish of the water against the boat, and the tinkle of bells around the horses' necks. Here and there the water seemed quite black, as though it was of great depth. In other parts it was as clear as crystal, and we could see the shiny pebbles and velvety grass below. I was gazing down into the water when I heard someone call my name. It was Arthur. He was being carried out on his board. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, "better than in the field." I told him that I had, after I had politely spoken to Mrs. Milligan. "And the dogs?" asked Arthur. I called to them. They came running up with Pretty Heart, the latter making grimaces as he usually did when he thought that we were going to give a performance. Milligan had placed her son in the shade and had taken a seat beside him. "Now," she said to me, "you must take the dogs and the monkey away. We are going to work." I went with the animals to the front of the boat. What work could that poor little boy do? I looked round and saw that his mother was making him repeat a lesson from a book she held in her hand. He seemed to be having great difficulty in mastering it, but his mother was very patient. "No," she said at last. "Arthur, you don't know it at all." "I can't, Mama. I just can't," he said plaintively. "I'm sick." "Your head is not sick. I can't allow you to grow up in utter ignorance because you're an invalid, Arthur." That seemed very severe to me, yet she spoke in a sweet, kind way. "Why do you make me so unhappy? You know how I feel when you won't learn." "I cannot, Mama. I cannot." And he began to cry. But Mrs. Milligan did not let herself be won over by his tears, although she appeared touched and even more unhappy. "I would have liked to have let you play this morning with Rémi and the dogs," she said, "but you cannot play until you know your lessons perfectly." With that she gave the book to Arthur and walked away, leaving him alone. From where I stood, I could hear him crying. How could his mother, who appeared to love him so much, be so severe with the poor little fellow? A moment later she returned. "Shall we try again?" she asked gently. She sat down beside him, and, taking the book, she began to read the fable called The Wolf and the Sheep. She read it through 3 times, then gave the book back to Arthur and told him to learn it alone. She went inside the boat. I could see Arthur's lips moving. He certainly was trying very hard. But soon he took his eyes off the book. His lips stopped moving. His look wandered everywhere, but not back to his book. Suddenly he caught my eye. I made a sign to him to go on with his lesson. He smiled, as though to thank me for reminding him, and again fixed his eyes on his book. But as before, He could not concentrate his thoughts. His eyes began to rove from first one side of the canal to the other. Just then, a bird flew over the boat, swiftly as an arrow. Arthur raised his head to follow its flight. When it had passed, he looked at me. "I can't learn this," he said, "and yet I want to." I went over to him. "It is not very difficult," I said. "Yes, it is. It's awfully difficult. It seems to me quite easy. I was listening while your mother read it, and I almost learned it myself." He smiled as though he did not believe it. "Do you want me to say it to you?" "You can't." "Shall I try?" "You take the book." He took up the book again, and I began to recite the verse. I had it almost perfect. "You know it." "Not quite, but next time I could say it without a mistake, I believe." "How did you learn it?" "I listened while your mother read it, but I listened attentively without looking about to see what was going on round about me." He reddened and turned away his eyes. "I will try, like you," he said, "but tell me, what did you do to remember the words?" I did not quite know how to explain, but I tried my best. "What is the fable about?" I said. "Sheep." Well, first of all, I thought of sheep. The sheep were in a field. I could see them lying down and sleeping in the field, picturing them so. I did not forget. "Yes, yes," he said. "I can see them, black and white ones. In a green field." "What looks after the sheep usually?" "Dogs." "And a shepherd." "If they thought the sheep were quite safe, what did they do?" "The dogs slept while the shepherd played his flute in the distance with the other shepherd." Little by little Arthur had the entire fable pictured in his mind's eye. I explained every detail, as well as I was able. When he was thoroughly interested, we went over the lines together, and at the end of half an hour, he had mastered it. "Oh, how pleased Mama will be," he cried. When his mother came out, she seemed displeased that we were together. She thought that we had been playing, but Arthur did not give her time to say a word. "I know it," he cried. "Rémi has taught it to me." Milligan looked at me in surprise, but before she could say a word, Arthur had commenced to recite the fable. I looked at Mrs. Milligan. Her beautiful face broke into a smile. Then I thought I saw tears in her eyes, but she bent her head quickly over her son and put her arms about him. I was not sure if she was crying. "The words mean nothing," said Arthur. "They are stupid, but the things that one sees." Rémi made me see the shepherd with his flute, and the fields, and the dogs, and the sheep, then the wolves, and I could even hear the music that the shepherd was playing. "Shall I sing the song to you, Mama?" And he sang a little sad song in English. This time, Mrs. Milligan did really cry, for when she got up from her seat, I saw that Arthur's cheeks were wet with her tears. Then she came to me, and taking my hand in hers, pressed it gently. "You are a good boy," she said. The evening before I had been a little tramp, who had come on the barge with his animals to amuse a sick child, but this lesson drew me apart from the dogs and the monkey. I was from now a companion, almost a friend, to the sick boy. From that day, there was a change in Mrs. Milligan's manner toward me, and between Arthur and myself there grew a strong friendship. I never once felt the difference in our positions. This may have been due to Mrs. Milligan's kindness, for she often spoke to me as though I were her child. When the country was interesting, we would go very slowly, but if the landscape was dreary, the horses would trot quickly along the towing path. When the sun went down, the barge stopped. When the sun rose, the barge started on again. If the evenings were damp, we went into the little cabin and sat round a bright fire, so that the sick boy should not feel chilly, and Mrs. Milligan would read to us and show us pictures and tell us beautiful stories. Then, when the evenings were beautiful, I did my part. I would take my harp, and when the boat had stopped, I would get off and go at a short distance and sit behind a tree. Then, hidden by the branches, I played and sang my best. On calm nights, Arthur liked to hear the music without being able to see who played. And when I played his favorite airs, he would call out encore, and I would play the piece over again. That was a beautiful life for the country boy, who had sat by Mother Barbara's fireside, and who had tramped the high roads with Signor Vitalis. What a difference between the dish of boiled potatoes that my poor foster mother had given me, and the delicious tarts, jellies, and creams that Mrs. Milligan's cook made. What a contrast between the long tramps in the mud, the pouring rain, the scorching sun, trudging behind Vitalis, and this ride on the beautiful barge. The pastry was delicious, and yes, it was fine, oh, so fine, not to be hungry, nor tired, nor too hot, nor too cold. But in justice to myself, I must say that it was the kindness and love of this lady and this little boy that I felt the most. Lady. Twice I had been torn from those I loved. First from dear Mother Barbara, and then from Vitalis. I was left with only the dogs and the monkey, hungry and footsore, and then a beautiful lady, with a child of about my own age, had taken me in and treated me as though I were a brother. Often, as I looked at Arthur strapped to his bench, pale and drawn, I envied him. I, so full of health and strength, envied the little sick boy. It was not the luxuries that surrounded him that I envied, not the boat. It was his mother. Oh, how I wanted a mother of my own. She kissed him, and he was able to put his arms around her whenever he wished. This lady whose hand I scarcely dared touch when she held it out to me. And I thought sadly that I should never have a mother who would kiss me, and whom I could kiss. Perhaps one day I should see Mother Barbara again, and that would make me very happy. But I could not call her mother now, for she was not my mother. I was alone. I should always be alone. Nobody's boy. I was old enough to know that one should not expect to have too much from this world. And I thought that, as I had no family, no father or mother, I should be thankful that I had friends. And I was happy, so happy on that barge. But, alas, it was not to last long. The day was drawing near for me to take up my old life again.